to be sleeping. So he told the Shishya, just watch out for things. It was an uneven road and things might fall out from the bullock cart. So he said, just watch out for things. After a while, the Guru woke up and found so many things missing from the bullock cart. So he said, did you not see that so many things fell off from the bullock cart? He says, yes, Guruji. Then why didn't you pick them up? Because you only said, just watch. The Guru said, oh my God. Then he told him, anything drops from the bullock cart, pick it up and put it back in the cart. And he went back to sleep. And suddenly he found, you know what had happened? The bullock had relieved itself. So this fellow picked up the cow dung and put it back in the bullock cart. It landed straight on the Guru. He woke up with a shock. So then he said, this Shishya is totally beyond any logic. So he says, I'm going to write down, make a list of all the things that are in the bullock cart. And if any of these fall, you pick them up and put them back. After a while, the bullock cart got such a jolt that the Guru himself fell off the bullock cart. The Shishya looked at the paper, the Guru's name was not in the list, he continued. So we are all like that. Bhogi's thinking is so limited. Constantly you need spoon feeding. And our education system matches our thinking. In our generation, it was considered below your dignity to take tuitions in anything. Today, the brightest of students take tuitions, all notes, and you're supposed to mug it up and vomit it back. In America, a committee was formed to assess the state of affairs of their educational system. And the committee came to the conclusion that education in America is boiled down to information being transferred from the lecture notes of the professor to the notebook of the student without passing through the minds of either. No thinking. When it comes to the yogi is analytical. His thinking has started, and so therefore he is innovative, he is creative, he is efficient, productive, and he is an achiever. A sannyasi is one who has absolute clarity. He knows exactly what to say when. It's very important when you interact with the world. What is important is at the right time, the right thought should come to you. If it comes 1 minute later, it's gone. If it comes earlier also, it's out of place. There was a priest in New York who was driving to New York from out of New York into New York for some concert. And he got caught by a cop, because he was speeding. When the cop caught him for speeding, he realized he smelled liquor on his breath, and then he saw an empty bottle there. So he asked the priest, sir, have you been drinking? So the priest turned around and said, only water. Then he asked him, then how is it that I smell alcohol on your breath? So the priest turned around, looked at the bottle, and he says, oh God, he's done it again. You know what it is? Christ was supposed to have turned water into wine. He says, he's done it again, he's turned water into wine. I didn't realize it and I drank it. The cop, even though he knew that he was drinking, he let him off. So it's clarity of thinking. And a jnani is one who's gone beyond the illusion. You see, the problem is that when you look out into the world, you're not seeing facts. You're not seeing what there is. You're seeing things that are your imagination. And how will you understand that? That's what it is. The whole world is Maya, illusion, is what the Upanishadic masters tell us. How can you understand that when you are in the illusion? You can't understand that. Like for instance, this evening when you go home and you have dinner, you have a full meal. In fact, you overeat because the food is good and you go to sleep. And within minutes, There are times when you fall asleep and within minutes you start dreaming. And you dream that you are a beggar, starving, and you haven't eaten for the last 7 days. Right? And you ask, you come begging, and let's say I have access to your dream. I also know that you are, I know you are so and so in the waking state, and I know you've eaten and gone to sleep. So in the dream, when you come complaining and say, oh, I haven't eaten for 7 days, I'm so hungry and all that, I tell you, so what do you mean you haven't eaten for 7 days? Just half an hour back you had a full meal, you overate and went to sleep. What will you say? I don't know what you're saying. Because in your experience, whose experience? The dreamer's experience. There is starvation, there is lack of food, there is penury, there is beggary. You can't understand. You reject the reality of the waking state in the dream. And the same you when you wake up. If I were to tell you, just a few minutes back you were complaining that you haven't eaten for 7 days, and you turn around and say, what are you talking about? Okay? So what they're trying to tell us is that this waking state that you're going through is also a projection of the mind. We will never understand it as long as we are in the waking state. But in an idle moment, when you're sitting there waiting for someone, let's say you're waiting at a railway station or you're waiting at the airport for a flight to take off, there are several moments of when you are alone by yourself and you have nothing particular to do. Instead of taking out your cell phone and sending SMSs to people, sit there and think. The rishis say that this is a dream. What if this is a dream? And it sparks you off into a completely different, at least temporarily, you become free from the trauma and the sorrow and the suffering of this waking state. So, this is a jnani, is one who has crossed the illusion and come back into the waking state, and therefore to him everything in the world is like watching a movie. Nothing affects him. So, the next thing is that a bhogi uses the body, mind and intellect only to destroy himself, whereas a yogi uses the body, mind and intellect to evolve spiritually. A sannyasi is one who uses the body, mind and intellect for realization, and a jnani is one who has crossed the body, mind and intellect and merged with the truth. A bhogi is totally affected by what happens in the world. The slightest changes in the world affect him. A yogi is much less affected. See, a bhogi is like a cone resting on its apex. It needs support all the time. So bhogi is one who needs, constantly you have to cater to him, constantly you have to say nice things to him, constantly you have to keep supporting him, only then he is happy. A yogi is like a cone on its side. By himself he'll be okay, just as by itself the cone is alright. But you give it a slight tap and it goes on oscillating for a long time before it comes to a rest. So yogi is still dependent on the world, but at least by himself he is okay, he has reached some level of stability. A sannyasi is unaffected. He is like the cone resting on its base. Even if you tip the cone, it will come back to base. A jnani is one who has zero affectation because he has moved on to the next plane of consciousness. A bhogi, yesterday we saw receipt of stimuli, reaction and responses, but he acts on desires and therefore he creates more vasanas. Vasanas means desires. Vasanas are unmanifest desires. A yogi operates with this receipt, reaction and response, but he reduces his vasanas because he does not ride on the desire. He doesn't act on desire. He acts on the discrimination of the intellect. A sannyasi is one who doesn't respond very much because he doesn't have many desires. He operates on receipts and very few reactions. So he has minimum vasanas. Ajnani only receives. He has zero desires, so there is no reaction, no response, no vasanas. Now we continue with verse 5. Yat sankhya prapyate sthanam tadyogairapi gamyate ekam sankyam cha yogam cha ya pashyati sa pashyati. Yogis, the active people, also go to that realm obtained by the Sankhyas, the contemplative people. That person sees, who sees Sankhya and Yoga as one. So what he's saying is, in the previous verse, if you remember, he says, Balaha, children see these two, the path of action and the path of contemplation, as different. Not Panditaha, the wise. The wise see them as different stages of the same path. Let's say you go to Connaught Place and get into the metro to go to, what is the last stop? Delhi University. You get on from Connaught Place, another person gets on at, what's the next stop? Or any station in between. Sorry? Chandni Chowk. Okay? One person gets on to the metro at Connaught Place, the other person gets on at Chandni Chowk. Is not the destination the same? Both will get to Delhi University. Correct? So it's exactly like that. A yogi is one who's at Connaught Place. Don't say sannyasis are at Chandni Chowk. A sannyasi is one is like a person who gets on at Chandni Chowk. But both reach the same destination is what he's saying here. And then he says, uses the famous term, Yaha pashyati saha pashyati. This is a brilliant term because in the end he's helpless. He says, if you see it, you see it. If you don't see it, you don't see it. Now what can I do? He's completely, totally helpless. It's so true. There are certain things which if you see them, you see them. You know, it's like a person who has this urge, this spiritual urge, this mumukshatva as we've seen earlier, desire for liberation, the awareness that you are bound. When you are aware that you are bound, this is automatic. The desire for liberation is automatic. A person who sees it, sees it. A person who doesn't see it can't understand what you're doing, wasting your time here 1.5 hours every day for 5 days. So you try your best and explain. If they still don't understand, you simply shrug your shoulders and say, Yaha pashyati, saha pashyati. Who sees that oneness? You see, if you see separateness in different paths, what can you do? You can't do anything but just accept. The other day, somebody was telling me in Bombay that Krishna did gross injustice to whoever. And I just listened and kept quiet. Another person who was a witness there asked, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you clarify? I said, you can't clarify because the person is so rooted in his own belief that any clarification is like water off a duck's back. Now, it has no impact whatsoever. Therefore he says, Yaha pashyati, saha pashyati. So the message in this verse is, don't worry about where you are. Don't worry about how low or high you are. Just focus on putting in effort with the conviction, with the confidence that someday I'll break free from this. Kathopanishad, that's why it says, Uttishtha jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata. Arise, awake, stop not till your goal is reached. This was Swami Vivekananda's clarion call to humanity. Wake up, you've been, and particularly to Indians, because you've been asleep for far too long. This mighty nation, India, mighty nation because it has this precious knowledge of Vedanta, precious knowledge of Atman, precious knowledge of the self. With this knowledge, how can you be asleep? Wake up! For far too long you have been asleep. And take this culture, take this country, the knowledge worldwide, because the world is waiting for it. Far too many people are suffering because of lack of knowledge. So that's the message here, and we move to verse 6. Sanyasastu mahabaho dukkhamaptumayogataha yoga yukto mune brahma nachirenadhigacchati. Oh, Mahabaho. Mahabaho is another word for without yoga, actually, it is difficult to obtain renunciation. But a Muni, sage, established in yoga, soon goes to Brahman. So what he's saying here is, it's like the equivalent of, you can't get a degree without going through primary school, middle school, secondary school, and undergraduate studies. So it doesn't matter where you are. What matters is that you're on the path, and sooner or later you'll get there. And he encourages them by saying that Nachirena. Nachirena means before long you'll get there. A yogi who's well established, the Muni, sage, well established in yoga, before long he gets there. So the difference is in your attitude. If you're committed, however low you are, you say, doesn't matter, I'll put in effort, I'll get there. If you're not sincere, if you're casual in your approach, you'll say, oh, the same Krishna elsewhere has said, Aneka Janma Samprapta, so let me enjoy life here in Delhi. This is exactly what happened. You know, Narada, a very mischievous sage. Once he was walking along the Himalayas and he came across one sage deep in meditation. But like us, you know, we are very curious to know who's coming, who's going, and all that kind of thing. There in the Himalayas, sages are also like that. So when he heard some rustling, the sage opened his eyes and saw Narada there. He prostrated to him and said, "What, Narada, where are you going?" So he says, "I'm just going to heaven and coming back." He says, "You're going to heaven? Please find out how many more janmas I have before I realize." So Narada said, "Yeah, sure, I'll find out." He went further and he came across the second sage there. He was also in meditation. He also opened his eyes and asked him the same thing. "Narada, you're going to heaven? Please find out how many more janmas I have to go through before realization." Narada didn't go to heaven, he just took a few turns and came back. When he came back, the first sage apparently was on the verge of realization, and he would realize just in a few months' time. To him, he said, because he was mischievous, so he just wanted to play mischief. He told him, the sage asked him, "Did you find out?" He says, "Yeah, I found out, but I have very bad news for you." So what is it? You know a tamarind tree? He says, "Yeah." You have as many janmas to go through before you realize the self as there are leaves on the tamarind tree. You know the tamarind tree, small leaves it has. So this sage was really committed and sincere. He prostrated to Narada and said, "Thank you for giving me good news. It's not bad news, it's very good news, because the number of janmas has come down from infinite to a finite number." And he started meditating with greater fervor. The second sage was nowhere near realization. So he went to him and said, "I have very good news for you." He says, "What is it?" "You're going to realize this janma itself." Immediately the sage started packing all his belongings. He said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to Delhi to enjoy myself before I realize." So it's a question of how committed you are. And now we move to verse 7. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyaha sarvabhutatma bhutatma kurvanna vinalidyate. Now in these 7 verses, Krishna has given us an idea of what these 3 categories are: yogi, sannyasi and jnani. And he completes this portion by giving us a description of a jnani. It's a brilliant verse. He says, Yoga yuktaha, established in yoga. Established in yoga doesn't mean he stands on his head and is very adept at yogic exercises and pranayam. Yoga means union. Established in yoga means he's established in union with Atman. He's reached Atman, in other words. Vishuddhatma, the purified soul. Vijitatma, who has conquered the self. Jitendriya, who has subdued the senses. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma, he sees the self as the self in all beings. Such a person is not tarnished, is not tainted, even while acting. It's a brilliant description. So, let's start with the first term. Every word here is significant. Remember, this is like a scientific exposition. You can't leave out a single word from this. Yoga yuktaha. How do you get united to yoga? Vedanta has prescribed 3 immortal practices which each one of us can practice right here, as you are, where you are. You don't need to change anything about you. You simply change your attitude. So the 3 yogas are karma yoga. All of us are active. In the same activity, infuse a spirit of service, infuse a spirit of sacrifice. So if you are a doctor, instead of looking at just how much money do I earn, look at how can I benefit the patient. If you are a marketer, instead of constantly looking at how much profit I make, take a look at, let me see how I can improve the customer's satisfaction. If you are similarly, if you are a teacher, instead of looking at how much you can extract from the student, take a look at how can I help in molding this child to grow into a sound human being, a stable human being, so on and so forth. In every field of endeavor, we can infuse this spirit of service, is karma yoga. Bhakti yoga, as we've already seen, expand your circle of love. Jnana yoga, constantly understand what is permanent in life and what is impermanent. Just understand. And when you understand what is impermanent in life, you no longer give it the black market value that today you're giving. As you keep practicing these 3 yogas, what happens? You get divested of vasanas and desires which are the impurity in you, and you become Vishuddhatma, no vasanas. Vijitatma, such a person has the mind and intellect under control because the desires are not there, you have no value for anything, so the mind and intellect will be with you, focused on whatever it is that you want to focus on. Jitendriya, senses subdued. You see, the majority of people don't even want to control the senses. The few people who want to control only deny themselves sense contact without controlling. So sense control is where the intellect comes into play. All your desires, all your sense contacts are supervised by the intellect, and only when the intellect sanctions it, you go ahead and enjoy the senses. Sense control does not mean denial of all enjoyments. That's in fact counterproductive. So once you do all this, you reach the state of perfection. And what is the test of perfection? Sarva bhutatma bhutatma, you see yourself in all beings. This is the most difficult. This is the test. Whatever it is that you do in life, whatever spiritual practice you engage in, go back to this test. Do I see a oneness in among people? Do I see myself in all beings? You know, there was a conference, and the conference was on world peace, and the leaders of 3 religions got together, and they were discussing peace for 3 whole days. At the end of it, God in heaven was so pleased with them that he sent an angel to them to grant them 1 wish each. So the angel went to the leader of religion A and asked him, said, God is very pleased with your efforts in bringing about world peace and has granted you 1 wish. What do you want? He very quietly tells the angel, you know, that fellow, the leader of religion B, is the cause of all problems, and eliminate him. The angel was most disheartened. He said, I came here to give them a prize for world peace and he's still harboring hatred. He goes to the leader of